Hello, I'm Elaine Sanchez, founder of Caregiver Help, and with me again is Dr. Joseph Casciani, founder of the Living to 100 Club. Dr. Casciani is a geropsychologist, and he helps people manage life transitions and find joy and new purpose in aging. So, welcome back. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you for the invitation, Elaine. Glad to be here.
Yes. We've had some really interesting discussions on life after death and aging solo and aging well. And this one today, what we want to talk about is staying connected socially. And if you've ever been a caregiver, you know that that is one of the most isolating situations a person can be in because once a loved one gets a diagnosis or, they're living with dementia or they're living with, Parkinson's, something like this, the invitations to dinner parties really fall off. You aren't included. People are going to ask you how your spouse is doing. Rarely will ask you how you're doing, but you become isolated. And then when a person dies, when a loved one dies, I think sometimes people are really uncomfortable with
Mm.
death, and they don't know how to talk about it. And so they can avoid a person who has become widowed. Or they might call immediately and they might send a card or send flowers and might even bring food and then they seem to disappear. So I think what we would like to talk about today is I want Dr. Cassiani's advice on um, sometimes people withdraw after the death of a spouse, and sometimes they're just kind of isolated. So let's take a look at this, and maybe you can give us reasons why people do withdraw,
Sure.
and then give us some guidance on how you can go forward and reconnect and have a social life after the death of a spouse.
Sure. Well, thank you again, Elaine. This is important. This is a very
Yeah,
important topic. And I appreciate your inviting me to share some thoughts on this because reconnecting after the loss of marriage of 5 years, 50 years,
right.
it's very difficult. And, our human nature is to again protect ourselves from more
Mhm,
hurt,
mhm,
and
mhm.
I don't want to put myself in that situation again. That's a very common response. So as you said, we build walls and we put up these protective walls, and well, they're safe. We don't get hurt, but we also don't connect. There's no social life, there's no joy.
Mhm.
So eventually we need to understand that kind of tussle between letting down the walls and being open to opportunity. So again, it's sometimes a person might feel some kind of conflict that am I being disloyal to my spouse if I
Mhm.
go out and find some new connection? It's am I kind of I want to say just lacking that initiative because I'm afraid of what I might find out or what I might experience. And there's no timeline. Again, I think that we want to emphasize that there's no timeline when we should start to let go, put those walls down, and reconnect. It's very individual. What matters most and when someone feels ready and not pressured. And the example you gave when you're offered to go out to dinner with a group, you should accept it. Yeah, if we're ready. And it'd be unfortunate if we say no and we don't get asked again because we're not ready. So it's okay to say
Mhm.
no if we're not
Mhm.
ready.
Mhm.
Um, if we don't get a call back, we can reach out ourselves and call that
Right.
person and say, "Look, I wasn't ready last time you invited me. I'd love to join the group this time."
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's I know a lot of couples might feel uneasy when it's solo,
Hmm.
when he's not bringing his wife along anymore. He's now a widower, and
Right.
that can make people uncomfortable because we're all experiencing that. sense of loss. Well, where's Virginia? We really miss Virginia not
Yeah.
having part
Yeah.
of our dinner conversations or
Yeah.
part of our barbecue. Um, so it can be just as difficult for the friends and social contacts to
Mhm.
reach
Mhm.
out to the person who went through this.
Mhm.
So again, part of it is this whole notion of a new identity, and
Mhm.
we're not we're not replacing the person who's gone. That's never going to happen. There's no replacement for that person who's gone. It's about being open to a new connection. We're allowed to love more than one person. There's nothing saying that we can only love one person. If I meet somebody new, I didn't love my spouse. No, 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 that doesn't work that way. Yeah, we might feel that, but it's not fair. So we can be open to reconnecting, to new companionship, and that's often what it is. It's we talked about the stillness that occurs when the person's gone.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, that stillness is uncomfortable, it hurts, and maybe one solution is for a companion, maybe to go to Starbucks or maybe to go for lunch,
Mhm.
some
Mhm.
old friends, couples or not. But it's a kind of allowing ourselves to feel some emotional life again because yeah, we've been so divorced from that emotional life as a
Yeah.
caregiver, and now we talked about giving ourselves permission, but there's um there's a natural need to reconnect and have that social connection again. Now, not everybody is so socially gregarious that they want to go out and reconnect or make new friends. That doesn't happen. And I've talked about that often because it's not fair to expect everyone to want to be social. Some people just
Okay.
want to be alone, and that's fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not that they don't talk to people, but they don't want to be out all the time. Anyway, but when we're ready, it's really kind of being open to the upsides to being alone. There we can we can be fair to ourselves and say, I'm alone and I don't like it.
Mhm.
I don't like it. And I think I want to have more people in my life again. And I have to work at it. It's not again, it's not somebody's going to knock on the door and say, here we are. We have to take that initiative. And it's not betrayal
Mhm.
because we want to move on. Is it too soon? Who knows? I don't know what the number is on there. Um, Adult children may often struggle with that too. Mom, why are you?
Oh,
Gee, I
yeah.
see you're spending a lot of time with your neighbors a lot these days. What? So everybody, like the friends have some problem dealing with the widower, and the adult children have problems dealing with
Yes.
mom reconnecting. So um, we can we can hold on to our relationship and still be open to new ones. So it's it's I think that's the opportunity there. We can let go of being alone and we can be open to something new without being disloyal or betraying or
So that brings up two
previous.
things
Yeah.
because there are different kinds of friendships.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's very easy for women to have friendships and go do things with other women.
Hmm.
I think men are less likely to
Mm.
do that. And so, women travel together, women, we go out for lunch together, we go for walks together, and it's just normal for us. I think for men, that is a harder
Yeah.
transition, to pick up the phone and say, hey, Mark, let's go have breakfast or let's go
Yeah.
for lunch or we haven't talked in a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
it's
very true. That's very true.
I think so. This is an interesting transition. My husband lost his wife.
Mm.
He was, what was he, 59? And she was 58.
Mm.
And so he was still young enough, to want to be coupled. And we've been happy together for now 30 years. So,
Mm.
that's really that's we've been very, very, very lucky. And I'm very grateful for that. Not everybody is that lucky.
No.
And so if do we want to talk about relationships now? Do we want to talk about, you
Yeah,
know,
I
giving
think so.
yourself?
Yeah.
So you have female friendships. It's really easy for women to have female relationships. I have discovered that most of my friends long for and miss male friendships and
Mm.
companionship.
Mm.
So let's talk about that and about we'll talk about women first, and then we'll talk about men. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, what you
So,
said is true that it often is more difficult for men to reach out
mhm,
after a loss. I think the loneliness factor is huge across the country, and I think it's higher for men than for women
mhm,
because
mhm,
it's not so unusual for a woman to have a collection of friends, married
mhm,
and not.
mhm,
So
mhm.
maybe more difficult. Um, I, I think, I was given a presentation in a large community up in Riverside, and a woman came up to me and she said, I've been a widow for a long time, and every time I go out with a man, he just wants to get into bed with me. And she said, what do I do? She said, don't people want to have relationships anymore? I said, well, um, be careful about generalizing because probably that's not true of all men, maybe the ones you've encountered. But she said, don't people have relationships anymore? And I responded by saying, look, it takes work. And if you
Mhm,
find someone you enjoy being with, you need to work on that relationship and, build that relationship before any physical or sexual intimacies. And I think I don't know if it's a stereotype or what, but, men are only looking for physical relationships. Not fair.
yeah,
So it takes work to kind of establish that connection and build on that. You know, um, Generations ago, we would have a courtship of how long, months or years before we would marry.
yeah.
Um, and there's something to, kind of put that back on, a pedestal because those we need to establish those relationships and not be so quick for just some physical intimacy. Anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is it takes work. It's not gonna come easy, and it takes discipline and being open to rejection because that's going to happen too. We like somebody and she doesn't like us or he doesn't like me, and um, that hurts. Who wants to go through more rejection? I've just lost a
Yes.
spouse. I don't need to put my self through that again. So there's a certain thick skinness that we need and not be so sensitive. They
Mm.
reject us, but hey, life's not perfect and there are disappointments. So we reach out and, you were fortunate. You found someone, your husband found you, and you have this great relationship.
We were lucky.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think people appreciate that.
Mhm,
That time, that investment pays off. It pays
mhm,
off. And
mhm,
if you really want to be with someone, it really takes hard work and maybe some hurt, maybe some
mhm.
disappointments, but you can stay at it. So again, it's rebuilding that connection, and we need that companionship, but at the same time, we don't want to
Scary.
be hurt again. Yeah,
Yeah, it is
yeah,
scary.
yeah,
This takes me into a place that I didn't think we would go today,
yeah.
but do you talk to people about online dating? Have you had these conversations with your clients and with the groups that you talk to?
I have, especially in my podcasts, I've had
Uh-huh.
two people on as guests, both of whom run online dating services. And one is based in Florida, and she
Mhm.
has a huge practice. She's done other companies before, but
Mhm.
this one is for seniors, older adults.
Okay.
And she said there's a tremendous upside to finding someone new in our life, and she highly recommends it. And of course, there's all kinds of risks involved, and she talked about the risks of
Mhm.
being exploited or being taken advantage of.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
are, so we have to be careful, but she sees just a lot of pluses to the online dating. And
Mhm.
I would recommend her and her outfit. I don't know her name offhand, but
Mhm.
I could send you that. And if people are interested, I don't, I'm not opposed to it, and I don't recommend it necessarily. I say we just have
Right.
to be open wherever we are, in the grocery store, maybe at the gas station, wherever we have a
Yes.
chance encounter with someone. Who knows?
And again, if you're doing something in a community program,
Yeah,
if you're volunteering, if you're
yeah,
in your church, if you
yeah,
are where people gather,
yeah,
there are opportunities. There are hiking clubs, there are bird watching groups.
yeah,
You can put yourself in places where there are people who are like you.
yeah,
And I think that
yeah. That's good.
to me it would be like the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Good point.
I do find that a lot of women and men after the loss of a spouse do experience that loneliness and that longing for companionship and friendship and intimacy, and that we don't age out of that need for that kind of connection with another human being. So,
Yeah,
and that's something that a girlfriend lunch doesn't fill.
yeah. That's right. Sure.
So that's interesting. So in our next conversation, what I'd like to speak about is managing relationships with adult children
Mm,
as you go forth as a single person and keeping your independence and being able to be who you are and making these different choices about where you live, how you live,
mm,
and what you do, um, and doing it independently
mhm.
with or without your children's blessing. So,
Sure.
what do you think
Sure.
of that idea?
Yeah, that's important. Let's do
Oh,
that. Yeah.
okay. Well, that will be our next topic. And thank you, Dr. Joseph
Okay.
Casciani. It is just always a delight to speak with you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
Okay.
See you again.